And we are live. So first off, a warm welcome to everybody that is tuning in to watch this live or is watching the video on playback. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And today we are joined by three SOMA co-founders. They are here to answer your questions about all things SOMA, the platform, the SOMA token, and also have a discussion about the digital asset industry in general. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to William B. Heyn, who's joining us from the US and is with us in Hong Kong. Bill, how are you finding Hong Kong?
Loving it here. It's great to be over here with the team and to see the offices over here. It's been an exciting week, getting lots done.
Fantastic. We also have John with us, John Patrick Mullin. How are you?
Good as always.
Great. And we have Will Corkin joining us as well.
Hey, everyone.
So before we dive into some of the questions that the community have sent through, Bill, I'd like to hand over to you to just give a general overview about the SOMA.finance platform in general and introduce it to those that potentially haven't heard of it or are discovering it for the first time.
Absolutely, happy to do it. So I'm going to try and keep this brief. I can prattle on about this stuff forever, but in effect, what we realized years ago was that tokenization of finance and decentralized finance was really the future of the financial industry in our view. However, at the time, years ago, there was no regulation, there was no moderation of the systems, and then we needed to find a way to take the DeFi systems, which are great, but make them safe and secure and compliant for all users. And this is, the real reason for this is to protect the people who are using the systems. You're not going to get your money stolen. You're trying to avoid getting your money stolen. You don't want to trade with terrorists. You don't want to do these horrible things that unfortunately sometimes happen in the current DeFi ecosystem. So we took a firm from the US, Tritorian Capital, which is a registered US broker-dealer, and we merged it together with the guys from Mantra Finance, which is one of the best, in my humble opinion, DeFi platforms out there. And we created SOMA, which is a really, again, in my opinion, a really, really slick DeFi platform that is in fact wrapped in a compliant cocoon that is provided by Tritorian Capital, so that once you're on the system, you can trade just like you like to do on a DeFi platform, but it's legal and it's compliant. And you're not trading with terrorists or drug dealers or any other those bad people that are often on the DeFi platforms now. So that's really SOMA in a nutshell.
Fantastic, thank you for that. That was really informative. And I'd like to get on to a lot of the questions that we have, which is the main reason that we are all gathered here to answer them. We are currently in the onboarding phase for the people that are at the top of the wait list. So people have been receiving invites to onboard to the platform. A key question that a lot of users have is, when will the platform be rolled out to the public and when can they expect to receive the onboarding email themselves? Absolutely,
it's a great question. And we know that there's a lot of people out there that are very eager to get their onboarding email and get access to the onboarding process. We have a really great problem in that we have such a deep waiting list. 600,000 or 700,000 people at this point. So because of the rules governing email systems and spam filtering in particular, we can't just send out 700,000 emails in one blast. If we did that, it would just go to everybody's spam filter, no one would ever see it, and everyone would miss it. So we've been sending them out in little batches, and the batches get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And we sent out 25,000 yesterday. I believe we're sending out 25,000 more on Thursday. But as we get through that process, within the next month or so, we'll then open up the platform to just the general public to onboard.
Yeah, I think one of the pieces to keep in mind as well is, in addition to the email and spam filters, is being compliant in the US and being a regulated company. Each application is actually looked through by a real person,
absolutely,
including Bill.
Absolutely.
So that's also something that we need to go through to make sure that we can stay kind of above board and fully compliant within the US and globally. And that's just one piece of it. So it might not be as a streamlined, automated process that just is maybe through some firm that isn't necessarily compliant, but that's part of it. And we have built a pretty streamlined process in the back end to be able to onboard a significant amount of people very easily and quickly, but while remaining compliant and fully above board, which is great.
Thank you. So part of the onboarding process is filling out user details. And there's a lot of fields that people have to fill in. Some of them are concerning income information as well. And one of the questions that we have from the community is why do you ask for income information as part of the onboarding process? And also, as a follow-on question, why is it that some people may be onboarded quicker than others?
Sure. So there's some pretty intricate rules around legal and compliance securities offerings in the United States. One of them in particular the industry has become familiar with this term of know your client. And the basic of that is know who you are, know where you're from, and those things. But it's really deeper than that in the investment industry. You're supposed to know your client and understand who they are, what their risk tolerances are, what amounts they should or should not be investing. And you're supposed to, as an honest and fair broker, make sure that people don't, invest $1 million when they're, on a regular person's salary, because it's not a suitable investment for them. So we're supposed to guide and look at that stuff. A really particular example of this is Reg CF, which is regulation crowdfunding in the United States. It is a specific type of offering where we're allowed to raise up to $5 million from retail investors. So not, accredited investors or anybody fancy or special, just everybody. One of the parts of that rule is that individuals are not permitted to invest more than 10% of their net income per year. And so you'll see a field in the SOMA onboarding process that asks you what your annual income is. And we will then to be compliant, have to keep you under that cap. So if you write in and say you make $100,000 a year, we have to cap you at $10,000 per year of investment. So for anybody who's put in, said, I don't feel like answering that one, I'm going to put in 0. You're not helping yourself on that front. So please do be honest with that when you fill this stuff out. It really does help us provide a better product for you. And then the following, I believe, was the variable time. Because we're in the process of ramping this up, and we have a lot of applications coming in, when we can quickly and easily go through an application and approve it, we can do that very quickly. The system has been built. It's very clean and very quick, so we can go through the requisite process. And as Will alluded to, one of those pieces is that we absolutely have to, under US law, have a registered securities principal review each application in person. You cannot automate this process. So we can go through and click through that, and when the application is absolutely spot on perfect, we can very quickly approve people. Because the process is very complex, oftentimes we run into applications that have very, very minor imperfections. One of the things we see often is that people upload files that are password protected, so we can't see them. So we have a system where we will eventually go back and just send you a note. It'll say, hey, this one piece of your application isn't correct yet. Could you please fix it? Normally, when we're up and running, that will be done concurrently with approvals. Because we're processing so many applications right now, some of those reapplies, which we call them, are being held up. This is not to say that any of these applications have been flagged or disapproved or passed upon. It's just we need a little bit more information in some cases, and we'll get to you. Don't worry.
And I think one thing to just add there is the way that our onboarding process is kind of constructed as well is that we literally utilize like a traffic cone system, traffic light system, where it's green, yellow, red, and then black is like, the no-go zone. But basically the bulk of people will get processed via a green application, which means your identity, your real world identity, such as your KYC credentials, plus your on-chain identity, because you have to connect it to a wallet, come back with a risk profile within our risk limits of a green score. And we have to merge those two identities to create that profile. Yellow would require, maybe an incorrect, picture taken of your ID, or maybe you're a little bit blurry, or you're out of focus, or something like this. That just needs a little bit more kind of oversight and checking. Red is obviously a bit of a problem, and then black is a really big problem. We don't anticipate a whole lot of blacks, hopefully not a lot of reds.
No, not many of either.
Yeah, not many of either. And the bulk of them will be processed via a green means go process.
And it's really great. The system we've built up is amazingly fast. We can process people through so quickly. It's really great and quick and compliant, and making sure that we're doing everything we need to do under the rules, but not holding people up and letting them get onto the system faster.
Thank you. And I will just add to that as well that if anybody has any questions during the onboarding process, then you can send an email to support@SOMA.finance as well to get in touch with us.
And if you haven't heard from us yet, don't panic. That doesn't mean there's a real problem. It could just be, it's almost exclusively something very, very minor that we can fix.
Or reach out in Telegram as well.
Or reach out to
Yeah, that's
Telegram as well,
pretty much 24/7 monitored.
So I'd like to talk about the SOMA.finance platform timeline, including what you guys have in store for the SOMA platform and when upcoming products are potentially releasing.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Timelines are always loaded questions in this world. But actually, before I even get into timelines, I think maybe just it's important to kind of lay out what actually the SOMA platform is. Obviously, the first part of what we're creating and launching is effectively the token issuance of SOMA, the token sale of SOMA. So this is comprised of what we call Starter. So Starter is basically the launchpad. It's for tokenizing any number of different assets. In this case, it's SOMA tokens that are representative of some form of financial, not ownership, but kind of claim to potential future profits within the SOMA finance business. That will be construed out of dividend payments to users in the future, right? So this is one of the utilities of SOMA, which again is basically what makes SOMA a security in the United States. And one of the unique selling points of what we can actually do, because we can offer this type of activity compliantly rather than having to have this kind of faux utility behind the token, we can create real economic value that is transferable compliantly to the token holders via the Starter platform. So we can offer any number of tokenized assets via this Starter product. It is for early stage businesses. It is for up and running businesses that want to raise capital. It's for any number of different things, and that will be one of the first products that we'll launch. We anticipate future launches coming down the line, and I think we'll share a little bit more about that in not too far.
Pretty much answered the
Well,
next question.
there we go. You can talk more in detail, I'm sure. So SOMA Starter is really the first one, and this is how we'll offer the token compliantly under Reg CF. As Bill alluded to, is for retail primarily, but if you're an accredited investor, you can also participate in a Reg CF. SOMA Starter can also offer Reg S's, which is for international securities investors, Reg A, Reg A Plus, as well as Reg D. So Reg A and Reg A Plus are larger, more cumbersome, or more
SEC code words for different types of offers.
Different types of offers, yeah. But basically, they cover any number of different investor types: retail, institutional, accredited, international, US-based, etc. And we have the licensing under Tritorian to be able to offer these things compliantly in a tokenized fashion, which is one of the unique selling points. And actually, you can go onto our broker check. As far as I'm aware, it is, if my memory serves me correctly, firm 45500.
You got it, 45500.
There we go. 45. I mean, I've been knowing this since 2017, so I should know that number. Broker check 45500. Tritorian Capital Incorporated, and you can check out the licensing if you go to the detailed report on broker check. And by the way, broker check is the public database of all registered broker dealers in the United States. So it's basically the database that's the source of all truth of what brokers actually can do if they say they're able to do it.
Run by FINRA.
Yeah.
Run by FINRA,
not by us,
which is the governing body, right? They have the final approval. You can go there, check it out, and it will say ability to do private placements of digital securities utilizing DLT or blockchain technology. And that is one of the unique...
Page 11.
Page 11 of the PDF, page 9 of the actual FINRA report. I said this a few times.
3/4 of the way down the page.
So you can actually go verify and check all this information in public domain. So SOMA Starter will be the first product. Some of the other products that are coming will be focused on the actual DEX trading experience, the trading facility, which is really the core of everything, which is the liquidity hub of where we want to trade different types of tokenized assets. We'll talk more about what those type tokenized assets could be, but it's any number of different things, crypto-specific assets, security assets, a number of different types of products that will be interesting, and they'll be trading on an AMM, so an automated market maker, which is traded peer-to-peer via permissioned liquidity pools. So you'll be able to have this DeFi user experience, as Bill alluded to, but doing it in a permissioned way. So what that means is you basically go through the process, you get onboarded, and then at the smart contract level, we permission you to access this product or that product, which also gives us the ability to really segment our user base in an interesting way, because we know, are you retail, are you institutional, are you accredited, are you this, are you that? And even we can know this on a state-by-state basis, in the US at least, right? And this is really important because there are different rules for this on a state-by-state basis. So the reason that we do it on a smart contract level is one, for that element of functionality, but two, because of the immutableness of a smart contract. It means that you cannot have someone who just bypasses the UI and goes straight to the smart contract to interact with something in a non-permissioned and potentially illegal way. So this is going to be a very interesting product because you'll be able to trade these different types of asset classes and then interact with, staking and yield products and get additional exposure to all different types of DeFi style investment products compliantly on this trading facility. The third product, which is going to be also one of our interesting ones, is called SOMA Earn. This is effectively a compliant yield and investment product that will be offering under the Tritorian licensing, that gives us the ability to compliantly offer private placements of tokenized assets, which are yield and interest bearing. So these can be a number of different things. We're looking at, for example, proof of stake, yield bearing instruments where, again, in the United States, this has been a highly contested issue these days, where many different platforms have been either fined or been sued by the regulators for offering these without the licensing that we have. So, we'll be able to offer these compliantly for retail investors, which again is one of the unique selling points of the platform. So that's kind of some of the rollout of what we're expecting. But first, it's going to start with the starter and the SOMA issuance, which we'll talk more about today. But then you can move on from those. I'm not going to talk about exact timelines, but we're all anticipating this in the very near future.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about compliant, and what does that really mean? Like, we all would like to be compliant, but what it really means is when you get into the system, when you trade on a DeFi platform, you just don't know who you're trading with. And you can make a moral judgment as to whether you want to trade with terrorists or drug dealers or international human traffickers or not. But we can give you an option where you don't have to do that. You're not going to know who you're trading with, but they've been through our process and they're not one of those people, because we'll exclude those people.
So with that in mind, one of the questions is, who is eligible to use the platform? And are there any restrictions, whether in general or specific to the individual products themselves, that are in place?
Absolutely. There's a number of different rules and regulations that we follow on this, but it comes down to this. Our goal is to make sure that everybody we can legally allow to access the platform will be able to do so. Now, of course, there are a number of lists, and we have the compliance. We rely on lists a lot. One of them is the OFAC list, which is the U.S. Treasury's notification system for certain regions of the world or countries that we as American citizens are unfortunately unable to trade with. So the OFAC countries are on the list, and everyone is mostly familiar with those. There are also things called special designated nationals, foreign, and other lists. They're really reserved for very, very bad people for the most part. And as long as you're not on one of those lists or in one of those very few countries, you are permitted to trade on the SOMA platform. Effectively, if you're allowed to buy U.S. stocks where you live, you can participate in the SOMA platform. The one exception to this is, unfortunately, right now, we do have to exclude Canada, which really sounds very strange. But the securities regulations in Canada are somewhat complex, and we want to make sure that before we launch anywhere, we're compliant with every single aspect of it. We'll get to it, we promise.
Yeah, and I guess the only other piece to add on to that as well is for some of the products. So as John was mentioning, for SOMA Starter, doing something like a Reg D offering is just for accredited investors. That's part of the onboarding that you'll do, whether you're accredited or non-accredited in terms of the onboarding stream. So that's one of the other additions. But besides that, it's a pretty open platform for everyone. As long as you KYC and get approved, you're good to go.
Particularly in the early days, it's going to be a pretty heavily retail dominated platform and product suite.
And that's great. That's what we're building this for. We're building this for retail folks to be able to come on and access some of these products that most often they can't access.
Yeah.
Particularly in all different parts of the world as well, right?
Yeah.
They'll be able to access in a way via a digital asset that they may already hold, but maybe they may not even have a bank account or a brokerage account in many cases in their home country, but they'd be able to participate in a compliant, safe fashion where they know that the asset that they're buying is backed, it's redeemable, it's real, and there's all the safeguards around it that we'll be offering to them. So you don't have people putting in, crazy amounts of their savings into, some sort of Ponzi scheme or something that we've seen a lot, that's offering some sort of crazy high interest or something like that. That's, really just a honeypot. There's all different types of safeguards in this case. So it's really expanding that capital pool to a global audience, which I think is one of the most interesting parts of the platform in general.
And the safeguards are something that you mentioned is really important because, people, in our industry, they often talk about how regulations are onerous or painful or difficult to deal with, but really those regulations are in place to make sure that the tokens and the securities that are offered are real tokens, are real securities backed by real companies. And so anybody who's been in this industry more than a couple of days has been rug pull or seen a rug pull or seen one of these scams or seen some token that they thought was something and really isn't. These rules and regulations are designed to avoid that if ever possible. And so really these are for the safety of the investor.
Thank you. So I know over the previous few answers, you've answered a lot about the advantages that SOMA has, but we do have that as a question. So I'd like to give you the opportunity to list out any others that you may or may not have mentioned, and potentially reiterate some of the ones that you just spoke about.
I would just reiterate what we talked a lot about is, there's obviously a market for DeFi products out there. There are people that really like to trade crypto, really like to trade DeFi, but there are a lot of risks with that. And the risks span from, as we've mentioned, trading with unsavory characters to investing in products where you might not even know who's running the product. I mean, that's one of the things that's blown my mind about this is everyone is super excited that we're doxxed, right? That's the new word for the crypto industry, that we've actually put our names and faces behind this, so you know who we are. These are the things that SOMA is going to provide: an opportunity to invest in projects that people want to invest in, but not even to worry every 10 seconds that the next token is the next rug pull or the next scam or the next thing that's going to get torn down by some regulator. And that's really the benefit I see.
Yeah, and I think, well, again, just to reiterate.
Not to put you in the spot, but
now you will.
I think one of the biggest things especially with our upcoming Reg CF token offering for the SOMA token is really the fact that, because we're coming out and the SOMA token will be a security, is actually having it be able to offer things that allows you to have, like dividends. Dividends are such an amazing thing that, everyone in terms of an investment portfolio, and, a lot of people and wealth managers around the world have said, a portion should go to stocks or assets that give off dividends. I think a big thing within the crypto space is you have a lot of tokens that they wanted to avoid being a security, so they figured out ways to just be a utility and not be a security. But because of that, it's pretty much spelled out that they couldn't do things like give off dividends, and
it didn't work in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And people were just investing based off the fact that they were hoping that the price would appreciate, the meme would go up and all this kind of stuff. Whereas with the SOMA token that we're launching, just by holding it, you will be able to have access to dividends from the platform. So you're directly investing in, an asset that, as the company and the platform progresses and grows bigger and, has more products and more assets on it, will be a direct correlation in terms of dividends that are distributed back, which is a great thing. I think for a lot of people, having passive income through dividends or through different pieces is an amazing thing to have within their portfolio. So that's where, super excited about that. Of course, there are other utilities of the token, but that's really a unique one in the space because there really aren't that many that have done things the right way and allowed for you to actually participate as a security.
And I think just to expound on that a little bit, I know we're going to get some questions about what the SOMA token is, but it's even more beyond the ability to have these dividends and things like that. The SOMA token will be a corporate security of SOMA.finance. It is not some nebulous creation that's come out of the ether that could disappear tomorrow. It is inexorably and permanently linked to our company. It is a security of our company. It is a preferred equity interest in our company. So this is not a situation where it's, some sort of undefined financial instrument that could disappear tomorrow, or someone could, go away and do something else. This is 100% linked to our company for good. There's no way to get away from that.
And just to maybe wrap it up from the advantages, we talked a little bit about the token side, we talked about the regulatory side, and I think literally being in the middle. I'll be the bridge. So I think the ability to interact with the crypto world, with the traditional finance world, via an on-chain, off-chain system, really is one of the key differentiators that we don't really see a lot of people having. So the ability to have a non-custodial product where you can interact with it via your MetaMask or your Ledger or other kind of Web3 smart contract-based wallet, and then be able to, because we know who you are, interact with the fiat world and have kind of on-chain and off-chain interactions between cash and other sort of cash equivalents, and then your crypto assets or digital assets, as well as with your brokerage account. I'll talk a little bit more about what type of equities and products we'll have on the platform, but the ability to actually move on and off chain between, your wallet holdings, your bank account, your brokerage account, all in this seamless fashion is really what's going to expand the capital pool of investment potential into this ecosystem and really take it to the next level. And honestly, it just hasn't really been done before. It hasn't been done in a way that's compliant globally. It hasn't been done in a way that's retail friendly. And it hasn't been done in a way that's functional. And we think we tick all three of those boxes, offering a product that everyone will like and we believe will be interesting. And, we're not trying to necessarily be, so far one way or the other. It's not, totally wild, wild west crypto or totally boring, no offense, boring.
None taken.
TradFi, regulatory side of things. It's really the middle ground of both sides of it, and really trying to offer a safe, secure user experience, but offering interesting products, interesting asset classes that offer advanced functionality that people just don't have in many cases. So it's really a cool system, and we really think it's going to make some waves in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
Which brings me nicely on to my next question. You could probably guess what a lot of people are asking about the SOMA token. When will it launch? And also, what are the requirements for being able to take part in the public sale of the SOMA token?
Yeah, so I think, with the launch of the SOMA token, as we mentioned, it'll be offered through the SOMA Starter platform, which is the first product that we'll be rolling out with. And it'll be through a Reg CF, so that's the crowdfunding regulation in the US, to allow US retail people as well as international retail and accredited to be able to actually participate. So the really exciting part is that this is actually going to be one of the first compliant token offerings to US retail people ever. They've never had a way to actually be able to participate. If they have, it's not been compliant and been illegal.
But it's usually avoided, to be honest.
Yeah, or just avoided, which it's been unfortunate that people in the US haven't been able to participate in some of these really groundbreaking products and companies. But we're really excited to be kind of breaking that mold and being able to offer it. It is a pretty intricate process. Going through a private placement, it does require documents and prospectus and things like this. So we are making our way through it. We are almost there, and it will be rolled out in the very near future. And that's of course, as we were mentioning before with the onboarding, we want to make sure that the people that were advantageous enough to waitlist, to invite people to be able to move up that waitlist, that actually have the opportunity to onboard and then be able to access the SOMA token Reg CF offering. So give enough time for us to go through that. So we are still going through the waitlisted users. We look forward to opening it up to a broader community and the broader public in the near future. But we want to make sure that we are clear and transparent and fair in terms of allowing people to get access so that they can be able to participate within the SOMA token.
There's going to be a follow-up there. So we will get through the entire list before the CF. So don't worry.
Yeah,
we'll get to you.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And that'll, really be the springboard to the products launching on the platform. And then from there, being able to launch, one other digital assets and securities on the platform through the starter. And then following that, as John was mentioning, some of the other products like the DEX and the Earn product and, so on and so forth. So very near future. Be sure to follow our newsletter. Be sure to follow our socials. Be sure to join our Telegram. as
DM
that's
Will
really
on Telegram as well.
yeah.
He responds very quickly.
So make sure it's the real one. There are scammers out there. It's
Yeah.
something you have to be very cognizant and aware of. But it is in the very near future. But stay up to date, and that's the best place to really get the quickest news.
Great, thank you very much. So for the second part of the conversation, I'd like to talk about the digital.
You didn't talk
asset.
about the public sale requirements.
Sorry,
Oh, you're right. You did ask that too, didn't you?
People are going to know. They want to know. They need to know. How can you get in there?
Yeah, so I'm the public sale requirements, that could be one of two things, right? So there's the technical requirements of going through a Reg CF offering. That's for that public sale, the requirement of that. So for under Regulation CF, we have to provide an offering memorandum that's sufficiently detailed to provide information required to invest. Included in that is an auditor review. So we have an audit firm that's going through and reviewing our financials, and that information will be provided. And there's a number of other forms that need to be provided. As Will said, it's a very complex process, and we're really almost done with it. It needs to be done right and needs to be done properly to make this go the right way. The other side of requirements is who could invest. I think is the other side of that question. And if you're on the SOMA platform and you pass that process, gone through our KYC, AML, you're allowed to. U.S. retail, international. The CF is designed to be a very open investment to anybody who is suitable and has passed KYC, AML. As I mentioned earlier, the only speed bump on this is if you put in you're limited to 10% of your annual income. So if by chance you put in 0 because you didn't want to tell us, why don't you send a note?
What's 10% of 0?
Yeah, exactly. So send a note or hit us up on Telegram, and if you want to change your answer. But that would be the only thing that would slow anyone down is you're limited to 10% of your annual income.
And I just one thing to add. So while the private placement process is there's a lot of moving parts to it. It is something that Tritorian Capital as a broker dealer has done, numerous times. And so, if you are a project, a company, really, anything that's looking to, enter the Web3 space, grow into the Web3 space, incorporate a token, incorporate an asset, anything like this that wants to be able to operate in the US, be compliant in the US, be legal in the US, get in touch. That's going to be one of the big pieces of SOMA Starter is, besides offering these investment opportunities to the people on the platform, is actually helping companies to be able to offer different digital assets, digital securities in the US legally, compliantly. And we're, the partner to help with that.
Yeah.
So get in touch, and we're happy to walk through the process.
And we're putting our money where our mouths are, right? If we didn't believe in the process, we wouldn't be doing it with our own company first.
Exactly.
Great, thank you. So I would like to talk about the digital asset industry in general, digital asset regulation, and also SOMA's place within that. And we have had some questions from the community as well, asking about the regulatory framework that SOMA is licensed for and how the products offered fall under the framework. I know you touched upon that.
Sure. So we can talk about it in general, and to be clear, the licensure is under Tritorian Capital. We have to say that to make sure we're following the rules. But effectively, Tritorian Capital is a registered broker dealer in the United States. It's a part of the Securities Act and the Securities and Exchange Act, which are the founding laws concerning U.S. security regulations. Effectively, any firm that sells securities to the public needs to register with the SEC and, in effect, register with FINRA and get approval to do that. Why? Because there are a lot of rules about how we do things, and we have to follow those rules, and 100% exclusively those rules are designed to protect the investing public. So that's the framework that we sit under. Within that process, there are a number of different things that broker dealers can do. They're very complex, ranging from small firms like Tritorian up to, you've all heard of the big investment banks and the big banks that we don't even need to name them, you know who they are. So there are different types of broker dealers. One of the new product lines that broker dealers are being told they need to request is permission to deal in the digital asset space, or distributed ledger technology is what FINRA likes to call it. And Tritorian does have a license to issue private placement securities using blockchain technology. That is an affirmative license that we've received from FINRA, and that's where we're able to operate compliantly in this space.
Since 2019.
Since 2019, yes.
So whoever's saying that they were the first these days, you ain't the first.
Nope.
Check the receipts.
And if anybody wants to hear the story of how we got that license, if you have 3 or 4 hours, I could run through the whole process for you. Exactly.
So recently, I think it was in the past couple of weeks, the co-founder of Prometheum, Aaron Kaplan, testified in the House committee and attracted quite a lot of attention. And one of the questions we have is, what's the difference between the way that SOMA operates and Prometheum?
Absolutely. So again, going back to some of the more boring aspects of it, there was a letter put out in mid-2019. It was a joint declaration by FINRA and the SEC, and they outlined a lot of the different ways that they would like to see broker-dealers interact with the crypto space, in fact. One of the things that they outlined is what they call the special purpose broker-dealer. And the special purpose broker-dealer was designed especially to be a custodian of crypto assets. And that's the license the Prometheum guys have managed to get. It's a very big accomplishment. We're really happy for them. It is also a license that we in effect have. The special purpose broker-dealer is for a new firm looking to enter this space. Given that we've been in this space, we already have the license, we in effect already have that, and we're moving forward past that. I would be remiss in saying that in effect, this license deals with custody, and custody is one of those words we throw around. Can we as a firm hold property, you'll hold your property in effect, your cash, your securities, whatever, in our accounts? That's what custody means. We can do that. However, we see the future of this industry, especially based on some of the latest blowups, to be non-custodial. And so SOMA is designed to be completely non-custodial. We will not hold your tokens on our balance sheet ever. They'll be in your wallet. You'll get to hold on to them. And for years we've been saying that there's an esoteric danger that this transfers those assets over to those companies. And unfortunately, we've seen, given some of the recent problems in the industry, that is in fact true. That these companies go bankrupt and the crypto assets in their accounts end up being stuck on the balance sheet of the company as it goes to receivership and into bankruptcy. And loosely translated, that means is you're never going to see your tokens again. So we're not going to do that. We think custody is the old way. The new way is going to be non-custodial. But in the event that somebody said, okay, you have to be a custodian, we're all set up for that.
Thank you. And recently, the SEC also identified, I think it was 13 tokens as being on their, as the way this is phrased, naughty list.
Naughty list.
Quote unquote.
Will they be offered on SOMA, or is SOMA steering clear of all potential unregistered securities?
So to begin with, first, SOMA will at least in its early incarnations, will only be listing tokens that we issue, and that's partially just to keep the process clean and to make sure that we get things done correctly to start without adding that layer of complexity. We in the future will obviously look towards listing anything that fits within the regulatory parameters and is legal for us to list. That is certainly sort of a phase 2 concept. But for now, we would not be listing those tokens now, but simply because we're not prepared to do that. Now, in the event that one of these tokens that's on the so-called naughty list is in effect redeemed or can get themselves square with the SEC, then we would certainly consider it. If they remain on the naughty list, probably not, because why would we bring a non-regulated product onto our very carefully regulated system?
Yeah, and I think maybe 2 points on my side to add there. Some of those, well, actually 3. Some of those assets themselves, we would be able to potentially help them in certain cases if they wanted to go through a process of registering or rehabilitation or whatever it is. Obviously, we're not going to make any claims about what they have or haven't done, but we're well positioned to help them enter the U.S. market, and we want to position ourselves as an entry point for projects to enter the U.S. market. Yeah. So that's one thing. Second point would be just technically, many of the assets that were listed were particularly like large, top maybe 50, maybe top 10 even in certain cases, market cap crypto assets. Many of these are their own unique layer 1 protocols and blockchains. We are launching on a smart contract based system and platform that is currently launching on Ethereum, and then we're exploring other different protocols, EVM compatible chains, other different chains. that are scalable, low cost, etc. So we would have to do this on a case-by-case basis anyway, because technically it's not even feasible. You can't take Solana as an example and launch the Solana version of that on Ethereum. It just won't work. The third point, which is more along the lines of what Bill was talking about, and something that we didn't get to talk about earlier, was what are the different types of assets that are going to be listed and traded, and what kind of tokenized assets they're going to be. Obviously there'll be primarily issued ones. So you got to think about, we can launch newly issued tokens that are created out of companies like SOMA.finance and the SOMA token, which as Bill alluded to, is a participating preferred equity interest in the SOMA.finance company. There's a number of different other ways that we can issue tokens that are tied into cash flows of maybe future revenue sales or merchandise sales of businesses or any different types of thing. It's very, very unique. We can codify all different types of economic value into the token. So primary issued ones, whether it's internal or through partner companies, is obviously some assets that could be traded. We will also be tokenizing what they call in crypto these days RWAs, real world assets. We're starting primarily with tokenized public equities and U.S. public equities to be more specific, that are primarily large blue chip, primarily tech stocks in the early days, but we'll actually offer and add more and more equities that can be tokenized and traded 24/7. They can be fractionalized. They can be all these DeFi things that a token can allow and a blockchain can allow.
Trade 24/7. All the good stuff.
Yep.
We make it sound so simple, but it's not.
And it'll start with public equities, but we could offer other types of assets, such as treasuries, so T-bills, which is a big thing in crypto these days. Everyone wants yield because of the interest rate environment. 4 or 5% is pretty interesting these days in a safe and secure instrument. Or even things like ETFs, mutual funds, money market funds, et cetera. So really anything. And personally, from that perspective on the RWAs, trading things like, publicly listed assets that are literally already liquid, and they are legitimately, they've gone through an SEC review process, they've done IPOs, they've gone, through the highest level of review. We're not, excuse my language, listing shit coins or shit assets. And
we almost got through the whole AMA without swearing, John.
Sorry. Well, it had to be me then. I think that actually means something, because you know what you're getting. But again, we're adding an enhancement to the functionality of that asset class. And alluding to earlier what we talked about, you're expanding that global capital pool to a global audience. And you could have someone in the Philippines maybe who can't get into a brokerage account and buy Tesla shares. But in our world, they can buy Tesla shares because maybe they have access to some sort of stable coin or other sort of asset class that is offered on the platform.
It's really way too complex to get into in this forum. But the important thing to realize about these real world asset tokenizations is there's nothing synthetic here.
Yeah.
These are all real. The actual stock, the actual whatever it is that we tokenize, it will be there and it will be held properly. So this is not some sort of synthetic leap into nothingness. This is a real asset.
So the way that you can get these, and there's basically three, is you can come on, you can actually just swap them on the DEX for the asset itself. You can mint them, so you can buy them with any sort of accepted currency. This could be a stable coin, it could be cash, it could be Bitcoin, credit card, whatever. We'll have all these different options for you. Or you can actually offer and bring your existing securities. Maybe you have Tesla shares, maybe you have Microsoft, maybe you have Amazon, Meta, whatever, and bring them over to us that can then be tokenized. And this is something that has never been done before. So you can actually have those three different venues, bringing it from the TradFi world or bringing it from the crypto side of it into getting exposure. And those assets are bi-directionally redeemable. So if you have the underlying token, you could burn it and you could get the underlying security. If you have the underlying security, you can create a token. And this is that kind of bridge that we talked about between the TradFi world and the DeFi world.
Yeah. And we can do all of that compliantly because as a U.S. broker dealer, we have or will have all the proper licenses to hold those shares and to properly manage them.
Great, thank you. So we're coming to the end of our live stream. I think by way of summary, it would be good to ask you all about the digital asset industry in terms of innovation and regulation and that balance. I know you've touched upon that, and I think SOMA is definitely a great example of innovating within a regulatory framework. But it would just be good to get an overview of the direction you think the industry is going, what SOMA is doing, although you have discussed that, but feel free to go into more detail. And yeah, I think it should be great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing with regulations, obviously, we're trending towards a much more regulated environment. And that's really because, well, first it's the law, but also we've seen some of the downsides to non-regulated events. We could sit here and list all of the different things that have blown up, every rug pull, everything that's gone bankrupt. And the real reason, and I know we in the crypto industry, often, get frustrated with regulations because they tend to be difficult to comply with. They tend to be a challenge. There's something else we have to do every day to make sure that these things stay compliant and stay regulated. But everyone focuses on the difficulty of it. No, I don't think people focus on the upside of these regulations. And these regulations, as sometimes as difficult as they can be to understand or to implement, they're 100% in essence supposed to be about protecting investors. And it's little things like when we talked about the SOMA token. This is not going to be some random token that we just generate that's out there floating around. It'll be a corporate interest of a corporation. And those documents we talked about, we're having to file for the Reg CF. In that document, we are required by regulation to tell you who runs the company. We're required to tell you who owns the company. We're required to tell you where the company is located. And these are the type of things, if you're investing in the shit coins, you may not even know who runs the company. There may not even be a company behind it. And so, it's all great when the things are pumping and these coins are rocketing up. But when things go badly, that's when you need these regulations. And so, so the money is gone. We need to be able to find out who runs this company and where the redress can be. And so that's what these regulations are really for. They're to protect investors. And as clunky and as tough to deal with as they can seem to be, I've been doing this for a very long time, and even I get frustrated sometimes. They really are there to protect people investing in these companies. Not too often.
I think from my perspective, a lot of the really exciting part too, just on the technology side, is you had things that have merged with DeFi, like automated market makers and DEXs, which are incredible financial ingenuities that came out that are really targeting and fixing a lot of the pain points that were in the traditional financial system. So DEXs that are able to allow people to trade within a shared liquidity pool, circumvented and got around a lot of the problems like whitewash trading, of order book manipulation, of front running, and you have a lot of centralized exchanges that sell your order books to different trading firms. So these things that really don't have a level playing field for the normal retail trader. And while these came out and kind of worked more on a fully decentralized and crypto side, it wasn't actually moving into and fixing the problems within the traditional side. So being able to now actually enter that and have things like public equities that, again, the only place to really trade those right now are on centralized exchanges that still do have to worry about a lot of these different pieces that have plagued it for quite some time. So being able to actually move this into a fully democratized system where someone can very comfortably come on and trade their USD or Ethereum, let's say, or some sort of digital asset with a public equity and know that it's swapped clean and instantly. No settlement, T+2 type things, and you don't have someone else on the other side of the trade that's really jumping in front of you or making you buy at a higher price. So I think that that piece of it, of actually using this technology that has come about and moving it into not just the crypto world but the traditional world, and having these assets and everything that you can actually access, not just on a centralized place but now a decentralized place. And of course non-custodial, which if you're not quite sure what that is, I suggest
go to our website.
Go to the corporate presentation.
Go to the website.
Go to the website, the knowledge base, because I think what we've learned, and to be honest, a lot of the emergence of blockchain as a technology was because people were losing money that they thought was theirs, but it actually just ended up disappearing. And that's still something with bad actors and bad players and different companies, that people are still losing money that is rightfully theirs. So really being able to take it into your own hands, quite literally, through custodying your own assets, and not relying on a platform that might not actually be regulated but just sounds like it because they say they have a savings account, but it's not actually that. It just makes it seem like a bank. So I think, these pieces of actually using the technology and, a lot of the technology that's emerged is one of the really unique and exciting pieces really across the board as it starts to, as John was saying, bridge the DeFi into TradFi and vice versa.
Yeah, just to super quickly wrap up, very quickly. I think the way that things have moved, particularly in this year in the U.S. market, we'll just talk about the U.S. There's been a lot of calls about uncertainty, and there's been a lot of honestly highly emotional, politicized conversations in many cases. And we just want to position ourselves as a friendly party to offer a suite of products to you guys who honestly have been kind of left in the dust here, because while all this hullabaloo and shitstorm
Now we're just dropping left and right, huh?
is going on all around, the people who get hurt in the end are the people who should be able to access the platform, the investors. And we want to be able to tick all those boxes of compliance, safety, but interesting products, and being able to do something that is that common middle ground, and basically be a friend to both sides. And I think we're well positioned to do that. So that's really what we're here for, and we're excited to kind of show you what's coming, because it's right there, just as Will is alluding to earlier.
In the near future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. So before we bring this to a close, I just do want to extend a massive thank you to Bill for joining us from the US, and also to John and Will for joining us for this AMA. If you are joining either live or watching this video back and you didn't have the chance to submit a question previously, don't worry, we will do future AMAs where people have the opportunity to ask questions. So thank you very much for joining. Thanks again to the co-founders, and we will catch you at the next AMA.
Sounds great.
Looking forward
Thanks
to
for
it.
listening.
Thanks,
All. It's
everyone.
great talking to you.
Thanks, guys.